You are never alone. You are never alone. Just reach into your heart and Allah is always there. You are never alone. You are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace, you are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Family Issues. In this episode we'll be talking about a very important point, a point I think you dear brothers and sisters out there really are eager to know about, because none of us hasn't suffered from this, and none of us cannot afford not to benefit from in such an important topic, and that is the dialogue between husband and wife. Dialogue. Can everything be solved through dialogue? Should there be preconditions like in the political life for dialogue, or should dialogue always have no preconditions between husband and wife? Who should start the dialogue? If somebody is mistaken and knows that he or she is, does he or she have to start the dialogue, or could it be the other party? How can we break the ice when necessary? Should the dialogue be conducted solo, or should it be in an entourage? Should husband and wife make the important talk all alone, or could it be in front of friends or relatives, or even their kids, or is this against the potential success of any dialogue? This is what will be our topic here in this episode. We'll be glad to receive your phone calls at 002 0238 555 248 or 249. We'd also like to receive your comments and suggestions at Family Issues, that's one word, at huda.tv. Your comments and suggestions are always useful to us. Please do stay with us. We'll be back momentarily to discuss this topic with our distinguished guests here in the studio, so do not go away. And it is Sheikh Zaid Al-Ansari who will be with us here, so make sure that you don't go far. Assalamu alaikum.
Never alone. You are never alone.
Are you looking for a way to recharge your hearts, or to get you back on track in your obedience to Allah? Or maybe you're looking for a program to remind you of your duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here on Living Hearts, we'll be working together as a nation, helping each other to remain firm in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every Saturday, live on Huda TV, you will have a chance to learn your deen, and at the same time, listen to real life stories that will make your heart shake. Every believer needs a place to turn, and inshallah, we can all turn to Living Hearts.
Never alone. You are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We have with us now Sheikh Zaid Al-Ansari. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for being here. Sheikh Zaid, of course, is a renowned Islamic scholar here in the region and in Western countries. He's also the head of the center, the Office for Institutional Research at the American University in Cairo. Thank you very much, Sheikh, for being here. Dialogue between husband and wife. Can we say that this is the toughest dialogue of all, while it can be the easiest and it should be the prettiest, but at the same time it can be the most difficult of all?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think you're right on both points. It presents a challenge when we have not understood the conditions that either make ease or hardship. I'll take the ease first. The condition that makes ease is to begin the dialogue with the same intensity and love and softness that we took to get a spouse. If we go back, if we've been married for years, and think about the kind of thoughts that we had when we wanted to get married, and the picture of the person that we had in our mind of who they were, how we would treat them. There wasn't the children then, there wasn't the responsibilities of going back and forth. If we think about that, that's sort of like beginning with the end in mind of solving the problem. You know, dialogue is just a vehicle. And there's nothing magic about the dialogue if we don't have the proper niyyah, if we don't have the proper, maqsood, the proper objective in mind. And that's to solve the problem. So it takes humility, it takes insight, and it takes the willingness for both parties to listen more than to talk. And begin with, sometimes, we're stubborn. So we have to begin with the thought in mind, she has a problem with, let's say, I come home and I'm tired and I get the remote. And I'm not listening to her and I'm not paying attention to the children. And she really has a problem with that. How can we disengage ourselves from our tiredness and our need to unwind and relax and listen to what she has to say about how this is disrupting the family? That takes beginning with the end in mind to solve the problem. So I believe that, dialogue is 75% listening and 25% conversation.
Important point there to begin with. So, Sheikh, are there any conditions for the success of the dialogue? Any specific conditions other than the intention and other than listening, more than talking?
Be candid and be honest, even if it's against you. I heard something from a coworker yesterday. We have a department that we work with on campus where some of the people that work in this department have known to be difficult people to understand and work with. New person came in a executive position of responsibility, and we were nervous about them going to give us a hard time. The first meeting with this person, my coworker said, I let my guard down because the person admitted their mistake. So I knew there was a common ground for us to work out our problems. That's honesty.
What if this honesty hurts your partner? I mean, if this honesty is against you, well, you're advised to go for it. But what if it hurts your partner?
Then you have to understand the degree to which you apply the medicine. Sometimes to apply the medicine in a strong dose will kill the patient. So based upon what the issue is, we know that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has concealed our sins, then it is not befitting for us to expose them to the extent where our absolution causes more fitna than islah. So we should be very careful in understanding with discernment, with basira, with insight, to say, I violated my wife's trust and told a secret of hers to someone. Confessing this, does this heal the problem? or going back and mending the trouble that I created outside of the home first, and then try to build the trust back. And then after the trust is built, I can build the honesty and the fidelity and the truthfulness. So it takes understanding in a very careful way, the temperament of that person. There are some people that are very thin-skinned, and a small, honest comment can destroy them. Other people will have thicker skins, and you can be more candid. So you have to understand your spouse.
Right. Another very important point there. So we talked about some of the conditions. Now, what about the word preconditions? And it is an ugly word, generally speaking, but you hear it a lot in the world of politics, for instance. This group is not going to sit with that group unless they do this and that. So the word preconditions, should it be taken out of the dictionary for dialogue to succeed, or can there be, in some cases, some preconditions?
In general, I don't think preconditions is a healthy way to start dialogue, in general. But I would agree that in some specific cases, let's say the precondition not to swear at each other. The precondition not to become aggressive. The precondition of letting the other person finish their thought or their sentence, what they're saying. Those kinds of preconditions, housekeeping rules, are helpful.
But these would be considered as rules for the dialogue. What I meant by precondition maybe is the husband or the wife tells the other that I will not talk to you unless you quit doing this thing or that stuff, for instance.
Well, those kind of preconditions.
Well, let's talk about everything except this subject.
Yeah. Sometimes those kinds of preconditions are the very thing that need to be relaxed. That is the deal breaker. The thing which is put on the shelf that nobody is really willing to talk about is the very thing that is leading the family out of marriage into divorce. So, our parents used to tell us, if you want to be successful, learn how to face the thing you fear most first. And that precondition a lot of times is the thing that's going to either make the deal of a decent, happy family or break the family.
Indeed. So you could be breaking the deal before even going into dialogue if you set preconditions. Sheikh, also maybe another important rule for the dialogue is perhaps the tone that dictates the dialogue. How careful should we be with our tone?
The tone is the medium. As you're a journalist, the medium is the message. How we shape the medium sends the message.
Indeed.
I can say to my son, "Did you have a good day?" And he's going to become defensive. What did I do wrong? Or I can say to him, "Did you have a good day?" And he's going to open up, and we're going to engage, and we're going to talk, and we're going to be father and son still, but we're going to be also friends. So the tone shapes a big part of what we want to convey. Because what the tone gets to is the condition of the mind and the heart. And if the mind and the heart is soft and willing for dialogue and engagement, then that will float across the airways with the tone.
Indeed. You talked about the sensitive skin or the light skin and the thick skin. And I believe this is a very important point that we should revisit here. indeed, some people, cannot take blame or cannot take advice. Others, can absorb even the worst of blame. So what do we do? What does the other party do here if you know that your partner is very, very sensitive?
A lot of times that sensitivity is built on self-esteem. And if you know that your spouse or your child or someone in your family, ones that you love, has a fragile self-concept, they're not too high on themselves, and the slightest criticism crushes them, then you have to know this, that I have to approach this person with a kind of softening and paving the way for even correction, mild correction, because of their self-esteem. But then you go back and build the self-esteem. Compliment them on not frivolous compliments, but true compliments. A lot of times, my wife, she'll spend a good bit of time making a meal, and there will be one thing wrong with it: too much salt, too much pepper, not hot enough, not cold enough. And because I'm not always conscious of what she went through to do this, I will focus on the 2%, 3% fault, instead of saying, you know what, this fish was perfect, except could you make it just a little browner? And so that will enhance her self-esteem and give her confidence and skill that when she goes back to the kitchen, she'll be, this man appreciates what I'm doing.
Right.
So I have to correct myself. And a part of that is paying close attention to my attitude and my affect, and to correct myself so I can help her build her self-esteem.
Indeed. Another key point there, Sheikh. Concerning the dialogue itself, does it have to be a closed dialogue, meaning just the partners together, the husband and wife, or could it be enlarged if there's a problem you want to solve?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. It's been my experience, when you have to get the reserves off the bench and bring them in the game, you've got a big problem.
Right.
If you can't solve it one-on-one, and you have to have an arbiter on her side and an arbiter on your side, then you stop talking to each other a long time ago. And you have to have a proxy voice to speak for you. You don't have a proxy problem. You have a real problem. It's not an outside problem. It's a problem inside. So it's best to try to solve it inside without bringing these proxies into it. If you have to bring proxies into it, which is necessary, and it's part of the Sharia, if you have to. But it's one of the last remedies before the ship cracks its hull and sinks everybody on the ship.
What about counseling? Some people really favor counseling if there's a major problem that dialogue cannot solve, and others maybe look at it just like the way you described it. We know that if we go to counseling, many would think, well, we're just on the verge of drowning. So,
I have mixed feelings about counseling. I have seen the paradigm of Western psychology that is a lot of times predicated on the individual self or the ego, the so-called individual self or the ego, make people very individualized, focused. It's almost like a chess game. If a skilled imam or sheikh or alim understands human personality, understands the Quran and the Sunnah and the beneficial sciences of Islam, then I think he or she may be in a position to counsel. But And some people from Western psychology who understand these requirements may be in a position to counsel. But I've seen good effects when the people are knowledgeable and grounded and balanced in Islam. But I've also seen detrimental effects when people bring the paradigm from Jung and Freud and these other people and have the family more confused than they were in the beginning.
Right. There is a problem, and there is a need for dialogue. And who should start the dialogue? Again, does it have to be the party at fault, or could it be the other one who starts a dialogue out of? It's hard to do, but I mean, would you advise this, or would this, make the party at fault, go even?
Well, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, salatu salam ala Rasulillah. Sometimes we need lessons. Sometimes we need a guidance, of a point of reference. And the most perfect point of reference that I can think of are the leadership lessons from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And those leadership lessons covered every possible aspect of the human endeavor that we can think about, right? And so recently I read a book by a sheikh. Actually, the book is called Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is one of the people of knowledge from India. His name is Sheikh Yara Beg. And I found great value in this book because it focused on so many family dynamics from the perspective that there is a manager and a leader in every relationship. So you have to ask yourself the question, who should start first? The right one or the wrong one? I think the real focus is, who's the manager of this relationship? Are there co-equal managers of the relationship in this marriage? Or are there a precedent of one looking to other for leadership? So we need to start reconstructing the paradigm sometimes, I believe, on how we see the home. If the leader abdicates his responsibility, which Allah gave us in the Quran, qawamuna ala nisa, that we have a responsibility of strength to be the leader in the home, and we cannot afford to abdicate that to all these other influences that might challenge it. So we have to take the responsibility of being the manager, take a book like this book or other sources from the Sirah, and say to ourselves, it is my responsibility, whether I'm at fault or not, to come to a solution to save the peace and sanctity of my home.
Indeed. The reason I ask this question is because if the party at fault is the one being approached, then that could make, whether the husband or the wife, take the other for granted. Let's say I'm the husband, I'm always mistreating my wife, but she always forgives me and she always starts the dialogue. So that could, in the long term, make for me taking her for granted, and vice versa. And that's why I was asking: is it right for the party for the one that knows that he or she is not at fault to start?
Well, it may be at some point that wife has to say after the third or fourth time, my beloved husband, I'm glad that you were able to admit that it's your fault again, but we need to find a way to avoid us reaching this position where I have to remind you of this and that you have to confess your fault. And we have to get to the root cause. And the same thing the husband should do with her. You know, there is a asbab, there's a cause to this that is the basis of the problem in the home, the nushuz in the home, that unless that cause is dealt with, it's going to reoccur every 3 or 4 months.
Indeed, and that's another key point I wanted to ask about is what if you're holding the same dialogue every few weeks or every few months about the same little things. They're not major. I mean, you'll find this in a lot of homes. They have no major conflict, no major dispute, but there are these little things that the husband does that annoys the wife, and that the wife does that annoys the husband. Very little things, and they keep reoccurring time and again, time and again. So how should the partners deal with that stuff? I mean, should they ignore it? Should they laugh about it? Should they, should they keep, talking about it time and again, even if it doesn't bring about a solution? Again, repeating, if they are indeed little things that don't harm them or their hereafter or their kids or anybody.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I think again we need to go back and take the lesson from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For Anas ibn Malik, he reported, for the years that he served the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet never said to him once, why didn't you do this or that? So that's the yardstick. There are things, I have a confession to make. I didn't come on to you to confess. But I grew up in a very structured home. And there was a place for everything. My mother was this extremely orderly woman. And so this is the construct that I see a household in. And so I have to learn and constantly coach myself that everybody doesn't see the world like that. And I can be very irritating if I demand this in a too vigorous way. And I have to understand that whatever this person's doing right then, and they might recognize, I shouldn't leave these things laying around. Because it's not just because it didn't irritate him, because everything has its place. But this has to be, in my mind, first, that I have to say to myself, that's just who this person is right now. Not permanently, but right now. Be a little more patient. You see them improving. They're picking up things better. So stop the nagging. Stop the constant complaining. Focus on the glass being half full instead of half empty. Now that's my challenge. I have to coach myself on that.
It's everybody's challenge.
Yes.
The back to the little things again, and the need for dialogue. Should husband and wife talk about everything, meaning that that problem occurred today? Should we talk about it immediately, or should we also ignore some stuff because there are a lot of details in life? Life is busy. It is busy for a mom raising kids, for a husband wanting to work to feed his family. So should we practice more the theory of ignore when it comes to little stuff, or should we talk about every little thing, because talking usually or hopefully at least would bring about more love between the partners?
I downloaded a book maybe a couple of years ago that was called, a book with some MP3s. It was called Don't Sweat the Little Stuff. It's all little stuff. And I listened to about half of it. And he was, spot on. That if you trivialize and nitpick every little thing, you'll never get to the quality issues. So you have to pick your challenges and your things that you're going to correct, because you can't correct them all. Because we're human beings. We're full of shortcomings. كلنا تقصرون. We all have shortcomings. So, the wise person, the wise woman, the wise husband will be able to distinguish between something that needs to be corrected right away, or here's some things that can wait.
Right.
Inshallah.
And things that could be ignored, correct?
Exactly.
Right. Usually, and finally, as we close here, the kids and all of this, if parents are used to hold a dialogue before the kids in front of them, how useful or how harmful could this be? Because I'm sure that it has its advantages, not just its disadvantages. You hear a lot of people saying, no, you should be talking about everything together, all alone. But also, if parents talk, of course, if they're not shouting or fighting, right. But if they talk about important things and their kids are before them, this could also be advantageous to the children. So,
I think you're absolutely right. I think the more you include your children in discussions of moment, in discussions of importance, particularly those who are old enough to have discernment, have reached the age of tamiz.
Yes.
That understand right and wrong and good and bad. The quicker they will be on the path to a Muslim, rational adult maturity with iman and taqwa. You're not babying them, you're not hiding things from them. They're a part of the family. And they'll appreciate it. When I came to Egypt, I was living I actually make my home in Gambia,
yes.
in West Africa.
Yes.
And I was in Gambia, and I had the opportunity to take this job, and I was on my way coming. And I was packing. And my 10-year-old son at the time got up and left the room. And as he was leaving the room, he glanced his eyes to me, and I could see the expression on his face, this disappointment that I had never seen in his face before. So I followed him in his room, and I said, Usama, what's wrong? He said, nothing. I said, come on now. What's wrong?
Macho boy.
Yes. He said, I don't want you to go to Egypt by yourself. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? I have to take the job. He said, I want to come. And leave your Ummi, leave your brothers and sisters, and just come with me? He said, yes. So I went to my wife. He was 10 now.
Was he the elder or the younger?
No, he's not the eldest. My daughter's the eldest.
Okay.
So I said, go ask your Ummi. And so he went and asked my wife, and she said, let him be a man. Let him go with you. So I called the university and said, could I have another plane ticket? Because I only had one day.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, let me see if I can do it quickly. And 24 hours later, we both were on a plane on our way to Egypt.
Beautiful story.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Indeed, beautiful. Barakallahu fi, and barakallahu fikum, Sheikh Zaid al-Ansari. It's been informative, and I enjoyed it as always. We hope our dear brothers and sisters enjoyed this discussion. On behalf of you, we thank very much Sheikh Zaid al-Ansari, renowned Islamic scholar and also head of the Office for Institutional Research at the American University here in Cairo. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. And
Barakallahu fikum.
Barakallahu fikum, Sheikh.
I'm always happy to be at home at Huda.
Alhamdulillah, and Huda is happy to always have you, Sheikh. And thank you for watching, dear brothers and sisters, this episode of Family Issues. Please do make sure to join us again next week, same time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Never alone, you are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace, You are never alone. So now, as you long for your past, prepare for your future, but knowing nothing's gonna last. You see, this life is but a road, a straight and narrow path to our final abode. So travel well, O Muslim, and paradise will be your home. And always remember that you are never alone.